All right, guys, happy Friday. Happy Friday. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to avoid financial delusion. I think a lot of people are experiencing this. And before we get into the ways on how to avoid financial delusion, I'll just go over my definition of being financially delusional. My definition of financial delusion is doing day-to-day activities that don't progress you to your financial goals, right? And you know that those activities are not going to progress you towards your financial goals. And I think most people are doing this, and it's because of these three things that I've written down. They haven't implemented any of these things in their strategy, so that way they don't stay in financial delusion, because I think most people are in this state of financial delusion, right? So let's get into the list. The number one thing on the list that causes people to be in financial delusion is, hold on, what did I say right there? Knowing what drives their day to day. Sorry, I couldn't even read my own handwriting. The number one thing to know about financial delusion is knowing what drives your day to day. So what do I actually mean by that? When you wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, right? You eat. You may take your car to go to work. All these things require money, right? So obviously this is an obvious thing, but most people are not paying attention to all the things they spend money on. Or to say it better, most people are not aware that almost everything you do requires money, right? So I think the number one thing that you need to do, or you need to be aware of, is know that everything costs money, right? Whether you're going out with somebody, whether you're going to the store, right? You're taking the car, you're spending gas, and then when you go to the store, you're spending more money, right? You get a haircut, you buy stuff for the house. Like, everything you do requires money. So I think that's the first thing people need to be aware of. People need to know that everything that you do on a day-to-day basis is going to require money, and it's not necessarily falling in love with the idea of money, but just knowing that it moves the day-to-day activities, right? If you don't have money, you're not going to eat. If you don't have money, you can't pay the rent. If you don't have money, you almost can't do anything, right? So it's not really being like falling in love with money, but it's saying, okay, almost everything I do involves money. So if I don't get good with money, I am not gonna, my day-to-day activities can't happen, right? Or they can't. Maybe they could happen, but you're not gonna have the best experiences when you do those day-to-day activities. And not to say that you need to have the best experiences, but for those even experiences to happen, whether it's a good or bad experience, you need money in order to make that experience happen, right? So that's number one on the list. I think most people know this, right? This is more of a reminder, and just being conscious, like, okay, everything I'm doing costs money. And what that does, it allows you to almost assess everything, right? And with the money that you're making, are you within your means, right? Because once you know everything costs money, which I think everybody does, but they're not conscious of it, you're able to make better decisions with the money you do have, right? Or you say, okay, everything costs money. I'm making this certain amount of money, and now I want I want a different lifestyle, so I need to start making this much more money so I can live that lifestyle, right? All right, number two. Number two is knowing the numbers, right? So I think this one is probably the most important one on the list, and that's because most people don't know the number. Now, what do I mean by know the number? I think once you know, like, okay, here's my day-to-day activities. These are all the things I do on a daily basis, or these are all the things that require money. So again, we go into those essential things like food, rent, medical cost. Maybe you need to take care of somebody else. Maybe you have a pet. You have to throw all those things into the bucket and say, okay, I need to figure out the number that I need each month to cover all these activities, to cover the costs that is associated with all those activities, right? And for most people, this number is around $5,000 to $10,000 a month. When you do it, it's going to vary for everybody else. Everybody has different expenses. Everybody, everybody just has different expenses, right? It may be 3,000 for some person, one person, and then maybe 4,000 to 5,000 for another. Maybe some people need $7,000 a month. Maybe you need 10,000, but typically it's around that $5,000 to $10,000 number. And once you get that number, you need to figure out, okay, this is the number that I need each month to cover my cost. Now, what's the number that's going to give me this money each month, right? And if you haven't seen Richard Fain's videos, he's another popular. I wouldn't say another because I'm not popular, but he's another finance YouTuber. And he always talks about the rule of 200. So whatever amount of money you need each month, you take that amount and times it by 200, right? So let's just go with the base of 5,000, and if you times that by 200, that's $1 million, right? $1 million invested at the standard rate of return of like 6 to 8% is going to bring you, after taxes and stuff, depending on what you're invested in, it's going to bring you that $5K a month, right? So 1 million is the number that you need invested to cover that 5,000, right? Now, again, you need to sit down and adjust that amount to fit your lifestyle. Now, obviously, this is the number you're going to need for like if you don't want to work the rest of your life, right? Again, it goes back to the topic, financial delusion. Most people don't really want to work or don't want to work doing the work they're doing at the 9 to 5, but they're not doing the necessary activities they're not taking the necessary steps to get to that number, right? 1 million, right? So that's the number you're going to need so you don't have to work the 9 to 5 or you don't have to do whatever you're doing, right? Maybe you have your own business, but you're still not making the money you want to make. And, this is the number you need to work off of, right? Strive to. All right. So we're going to recap. The first thing is knowing that money drives everything. And this is not saying that you need to be in love with money or you need to put money first, but you need to know that it's important and that it almost drives all your day-to-day activities, all right? Or at least it determines the experience you're going to have with those day-to-day activities. Number 2 is knowing the number, right? Like I said, 5,000 to 10,000 is the typical number for the average person that they need to cover their day-to-day expenses. We talk about things like rent, talk about things like car, insurances, food. That's kind of the range that could almost complement every average person's life, essentially, that 5 to 10K number, right? All right. So once you figured out the number, you need number 3 is you need to align your day-to-day activities with day-to-day activities with that number. All right. So what this is going to do is this is going to allow you to cut out all the nonsense that you're doing or all the ideas that are really not going to get you to that number. So for instance, so again, the standard, right? We did the 5,000 times 200. It's going to give you the million, which is going to give you the 5K a month, right? So if your goal is to get to that 1 million and all you're doing during the week is driving Uber, maybe you're making $4,000 to $5,000 a month. Is that going to get you to your goal on time, right? And that's another aspect to it. That's number, and actually I should have added the timing piece too. So number 3, and we'll go back to aligning the activities, but yeah, let's actually make number 3 the timing. You need to determine the amount of time that you want to take to get to that number, right? So let's say you're 20 and you want to do it in 10 years, right? By 30, you want to have that 1 million. So the timing piece is there. And then you need to align your activities with the with that number, with the number that you decided that's going to cover your day-to-day expenses when invested, and it's giving you that 6 to 8% return, right? So, and what this does is this cuts out the laziness. It cuts out any crazy ideas that you think that is going to get you to that number. So again, the example I was giving was the Uber example. You can't be an Uber driver from 20 to 30 and think you're going to hit that $1 million number unless you're doing some serious driving, right? Like I can't see. Even if you did Uber all day, I don't think you could get to that $1 million number, right? You would almost have to save all the money that you made to get to that $1 million number, and even still, I don't think you would hit that, right? So what that does is it says, okay, my day-to-day activities involves me working from Monday through Friday at 9 to 5, and maybe from that 9 to 5, you're making $50,000 to $60,000 a year, but you really only get to save like $1,000 a month, let's just say, right? And that's being generous because most people are not even able to save that from their job. But let's just say you save $1,000 a month. 1,000 times 12, that's 12,000 times, let's say you do it consistently, right? You have to do it consistently for 10 years because your goal is to get it there by 30. You are now at $120,000 if you save all that money, if during that 10 years, you don't have any emergency, if there's a lot of ifs, right? So you're not going to get to that $1 million goal just driving Uber and even saving all that, is even saving that, you're not even saving all of it, right? We just said $1,000 a month. So again, going back to aligning your day-to-day activities, what this does, it allows you to throw out all the stuff that's really not going to get you to your goal, and it's going to allow you to think outside the box and say, okay, I'm doing this right now. This is not going to get me to my goal. I need to do something additionally that's going to get me to that goal, and then you can start working the numbers, right? But, a lot of people, they don't know the number, right? One. And if you don't know the number, you don't know that just working the job is not going to get you to that. And most people just work the job, contribute to their 401k, and maybe at the end of retirement they have 200,000 to 300,000, but then on that you still have to pay taxes on it, right? So even by 60, the standard age, 60, 65, you haven't hit that number, and that's way more than the 10 years that you talked about or that you wanted to do it in. So yeah, aligning those activities is really going to cut out not only the working activities you do, but then also the extracurricular activities, right? If you know your number, but on the weekend you're at the bar or you're chilling with the friends and you are, maybe you're playing a sport, you can't say that this is your goal, right? Because if it was your goal, you would be aligning those activities to complete those goals. You can't be doing, drinking on the weekend. Not saying you can't drink, but, if that's all you're doing and you have this goal, then you're really not doing what you need to do to get to where you want to go, right? And I think the third one's very important because, and I think it comes automatically once you set that number, right? Once you set the number, you understand, okay, if I really want to hit this number, I can't do the same activities that I was doing, when I didn't have this goal. Because now I have this number, and it's a pretty big number if I don't do the necessary steps, right? So yeah, those extra activities, it's not just your working activities that you need to adjust. You need to also adjust the extracurricular activities, right? Maybe you need to cut some of the things you do on the weekend to put that time towards a business, Maybe put that time towards an extra job so you could put towards more resources to build you that business, to make you more money. And these three steps, if you do it in order, they almost automatically go hand in hand, right? Number one, again, if you understand that everything you do involves money, you understand that you need to be conscious of the decisions you make when it comes to making money or when it comes to spending money. Two, once you understand the number you're going to need to not have to work, you will start aligning your activities to activities that are going to get you to that number, right? You again, the whole point of this is the financial delusion that people are in because they're working a 9 to 5, they're partying on the weekend, drinking, at the beach, at the mall, at the restaurants. And I'm not saying you can't do any of those things, but I'm trying to get people out of the financial delusion that they're in and that they're complaining about, but they're not doing anything to get out of that. All right. So, yeah, I think all these three things are important to get out of the state of being financially delusional. I think most people are. I think when you hear people speak, they're like, oh, I hear so many people, they're like, oh, I want to travel, I want to do this. But again, you haven't written any of the numbers down, right? That $5,000 a month that I was talking about is just to cover the basic, the essential expenses. And maybe you save a little money on the side. I didn't even include nice vacations that you may want to go on twice a month, right? Now maybe that number is 10 to 15,000 that you need each month to cover those expenses, to cover those vacations, to cover those flights, the hotel, the food that you're going to eat. Maybe you want to bring somebody along, right? Maybe you want to bring somebody along those vacations. Maybe you have to cover them, right? If you don't want to be, depending on anybody, maybe you have to foot the bill, right? Or maybe it's your significant other and now you have to account for somebody else. What if you have a kid, right? You have to account for all these expenses. That 5,000 was just kind of for maybe one person, maybe two people, if you're living like a basic lifestyle. And with things getting more expensive, I think people need to sit down and figure out that number. That way you can get to your goal faster. I think once you know the number, you can start aligning your activities with what's going to get you to that number. But yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about today. I didn't have an article. Usually I have an article, but sometimes I'll do this where I think about a specific topic or something comes to mind, and I'll just talk on the camera, go on live, and just state my opinion on certain financial topics. I think this was a good one. I think a lot of you live in financial delusion, and the way to get out of there is to know the number, know what activities is going to get you to that number, and then being consistent with that. All right. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I will see you guys Monday when we do the Market Monday update. And yeah, hope you guys have a good weekend. Take care.